Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 219 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. And by the way, what's today? Today is February 3rd, 2025, and I'm recording this, at least in part, at 11:34 a.m. Happy Black History Month. It is a beautiful thing. I think it's charming that people think this can be canceled. Sure it can. No. And I'll tell you why. History is history. My experience working in a limited way in history as a Shakespeare scholar is you can try to cancel history, you can try to hide history, but it has this very nasty way of coming back at you. So where was I? Happy Black History Month. In the meantime, in the warm thanks, thank you, people who are pursuing history. Thank you. Thank you, those of us outside of the United States that are recording our history currently. We're going to need you. In the meantime, I'd like to thank, as always, my community here in this group and on Reddit and on the ground here in the Santa Clarita Valley. But I also want to thank Darlene, very belatedly. Darlene wrote, and I missed it when she wrote and asked about the fires and sent love. And I know it's really wonderful now to look at the Watch Duty app and see the fires as still listed, but listed as out. It's such a relief. Thank you, Darlene. I'm sorry I missed your posting. It's been just a little too exciting. Thanks also to Lynn T. for the very generous coffee and for the very kind and moving note. It meant a lot to me. And again, it's antidote to the trolls because they're out there. Meanwhile, what's on my hooks and needles? Well, I have declared finish it February. I should be declaring vestuary. I should. Will I? Won't I? That is the question. But I have finished nothing, and I realize I need to finish a whole bunch of things. What's in progress? Well, the stash toss. Everybody sit down. We're at 16 in and 0 out. Why? Well, because I finished spinning my Morobe merino and also the skeins of the creamsicle, the rather rough wool, and I washed and finished them. The creamsicle is just as soft as butter. I'm always going to feel like I really scored on that. So I added 4 skeins there, and then I went through the Malabrigo stash because I got to notice that the colorways that I don't have quite enough of are, again, in stock at various places. So I decided, well, who knows what's going to happen with the tariffs, etc. So I ordered 4 skeins because I was bringing 3 colorways up to sweater quantities. That is to say, I'm working with Cerezza right now on the incredibly beautiful Sweetheart sweater. And realized I bought a lot extra because I was making the original Cerezza was ordered to make a sweater for someone who's 6 inches taller than I am. Then I realized I'm going to have at least 2 skeins left and thought, well, it's going to make a really good vest or slip over. So I bought 2 more skeins to bring that up to vest quantity. And then I had a look at other colors and realized I'm 1 shy in the Virgo colorway. And I looked at Potion, which was supposed to be a highlight color in another sweater. And I'm starting to think it may become its own sweater. So I bought 1 more of that I at least can have a vest out of it. So I have declared finish it February, and I am trying to catch up on things, which leads me to say the beautiful waffle socks. This is the blueberry waffle socks in Blue Iris from Ba La Jolla. And I'm on the first sock, and I'm now on the foot, having put in the waist yarn for the heel. And I'm doing the foot just smooth. I'm doing it in stockinette. I decided not to continue the blueberry waffle pattern there because I just didn't want to. I wanted to see what it looks like. And I also thought I was going to need some more, mindless popcorn knitting. Well, the 10 square bag I have not touched. The Lakeside cardigan I have not touched. The Vestuary 24 I have not touched. I did pull it out though to compare it and realize, yeah, that neckline has to be pulled out. There's no way. It's really distorting the knit right below the neckline too much. It's too tight. Meanwhile, well, remember those 4 skeins of, was it 4 or 6? I forget. Of the leftover Morobay. Yeah. Well, I started a vest. And so I guess that's Vestuary 25. I am using the novice slipover from Petite Knit. I happen to like Petite Knit. And this is very interesting because, of course, it's another project where you learn things. This is a top-down vest, something I've never tried. And when you read the instructions, you think, this is impossible. No, but you must go through them slowly and rethink a lot as you go, even in its novice format where Petite Knit explains everything to death. It still takes some thought. It's not the most obvious thing. You can see a picture of it where I have the left strap coming over the shoulder and you're looking at the back of it. You knit the back yoke. You're actually knitting from about midway up the back, but you don't know that. The cast on is really midway up the back. And you go up and you get to the top and then you break some yarn and you just do straps with increases. Then you go over the top and you do backwards loop cast on to connect the 2 straps, and now you're knitting the front. And right now I've got both straps in and I'm knitting the front. And you go down so far and then you're just going to basically be at the middle of the front and you're going to do some backward loop cast on and you're going to join the front and the back and then just knit in the round. This sounds very hard, very complicated. It isn't. Things you should know. You really do have to be fearless about picking up stitches to do this one. And I've already learned how to pick up stitches on the cast on row. And I've gotten better at picking up stitches where I've broken the yarn. I've really just learned a lot about picking up stitches. So this is a good one for learning, and there's a certain amount of fearlessness here. I will tell you, if you're going to do anything by Petite Knit, she has a lot of good videos as backup. They may be, I believe, in Danish, but there's usually English translation as text on the screen. And you just do them, and you have to obey them completely literally and just get on with it. To me, it looks like she has reversed the increases, left and right facing increases. She seems to have reversed how you do them as far as I'm concerned. So where she says make one left, I'm making one right and liking much better what I'm getting. That's an unusual thing to say, but there you have it. So apart from that, though, I like Petite Knit's patterns a lot. I've used them before. And so I'm working on that. I guess I'm doing a Vestuary 25, even though Vestuary 24 shames me. However, as I was knitting this, I did change the needle size. She has it on size 8s. I put it on size 7s because I thought my yarn was just a little thin in places. And also now when I knit regular sweaters, I'm finding I do better on size 7s, not size 8s. And this has really changed how I'm doing things like the Sweetheart sweater. I'm getting a lot more of what I like. And on this, I realized, yes, I am getting gauge. And I thought, oh, this is way too narrow. No, it's not. I picked up my Vestuary 24 and I held it up and they are pretty much the same in size. So, this is a little scary because it looks more narrow than it is to me. But there you go. So I'm doing Vestuary 25. The Romeo sweater 2024, the Sweetheart, is going so well. I'm on the yoke, and as I record this, I think I'm on row 21, and after this, it decreases to the neckline. So I imagine it'll go pretty quickly at this point. I got a little overwhelmed by all the stitches in the yoke. I think it's 280. So I was doing 1 row per day, because I was getting overwhelmed, and usually I'll sit down and do 2 or 3 rows of yoke when I do a top down. Well, this time I decided to do it very slowly and carefully. I love it. It's worked really well. And it's the least of my problems that after racing through the sleeves and the body of the sweater, it's taking 1 row per day on the yoke and the neckline. I imagine I'll start going faster, but it's an easy pattern to memorize, very nice to work with, and it's just really beautiful. On my quilt squares, I am still working on 10 more. I've got 59 finished out of 100, so we're heading for 69. I'm just enjoying these immensely and going through the strips of leftover fabric clippity-clop, and have discovered I still have little bits and pieces, and rather than toss them out, I'm looking at a thing called popcorn quilting, and we'll see how that goes. But right now, I'm just having a grand time. It feels really great. You know me and scrapping, right? It feels really great to use up this stuff instead of just tossing it in a trash bin. Desi Blondes is where most of my action was this week, and so there's a picture of the unfinished creamsicle fiber, but it looks pretty much the same finished, and it's just lovely. It came out really nicely. Got about 150 yards of it. The Carolina homespun sliver, that came out as a bulky to my surprise. It's a silk wool mix. I think it's a 2080. But anyway, that came out very, very nicely, and these have all gone into storage, I believe, in the back bedroom. I don't see them here anywhere. Good. They need to go into storage. And also, I did the Redfish Fun Packs. This is a 50/50 silk merino. This was in rainbow. It's a rainbow collection, just going from red right down through violet, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I am finished those little bits. Forget how many little ones there were, 8 or so. And I have since triple plied it, so we will be seeing that next week, I think, in our finished yarns list. I will be adding another skein to the stash toss. Meanwhile, I've been doing all this on my electric eel 6.1. This is a fairly easy one to use. It has been a little persnickety that if you don't get everything just right, the engine stalls on you. And I've just gotten better and better at it. And I'm also getting more thoughtful about engines that are full of dust don't work well. And so, or the fan that's full of dust, I think, in this case. So anyway, I have been working on storage for all of my wheels from Maurice. You may remember I got a lunchbox a couple weeks ago for one of my little nanos. So I finally found a box that will fit the electric eel 6.1. And I got one, so pretty soon, I have 2 EEW 6.1s right now. That's a long story. So one of them is going to go into Yon Lovely lunchbox and go into storage in the walk-in closet. And probably there's another one of these lunch boxes in the future to store the other one. Yeah, it was an Amazon purchase. Everybody take a deep breath. And that will bring us on to a strategy. Well, that's kind of interesting. I didn't mean to spend all this time on computer stuff, but it's kind of happened to me. So what I am doing lately is I am setting a 5-minute timer on my doom scrolling. I have learned, as I've told you repeatedly from Yola Boca Flood, that I really need not to be as wrapped up in the internet. Partly because of current politics, partly because it's a little hysterical in its nature, no matter which side you're on. And partly because I'm retiring, and I don't want to spend my retirement on the internet. I spent my youth and the first half of my life not on the internet, and I'm beginning to realize more and more outside of occasional news summaries, that's all I want to get from it. And communication with people at a distance. So I set a timer now on my doom scrolling, and it's interesting. So that means I get through Instagram and Facebook in 5 minutes. Blue Sky, I'm willing to give myself a little more time on, but I'm weeding that out very carefully. This is also because it made me think a lot. I was getting so upset and so distressed about recent events that I really did think a lot about who I trust for information. I had tried a news summary called 1440-1440. No, they parade themselves as neutral, and then they just don't have any information about the current regime that will not satisfy the current regime. So they're not mentioning the cuts in funding, the muzzle on, the CDC. So that went away. So that's 1440, 1440. No, they're not reliable as far as I'm concerned. They're certainly not unbiased. But so I'm looking into that. And I'm also just going through all my tablets and computers and getting rid of apps that no longer serve me. That's not at all political. They just don't serve me, and I just thought, let's weed it out now. And I am rebooting everything, all the tablets and computers and the phones, once a day, because that is actually a way to reduce malware attacks. So I have been doing that. And that's actually pretty nice that, suddenly a lot of garbage is off my computers. And all of this has led me to think about who owns what on the internet. And I don't want to get paranoid about that the cloud has been very helpful to me career-wise. And it's been helpful in a lot of ways, but it's not always neutral. And so I just started downloading things from various sites that I have bought that I am storing on that site. Lately, the big one is Ravelry. Now, I trust Ravelry. I actually have a lot of respect for the people who created it. And I have a lot of respect for them for not selling it to some big corporate entity that could have folded, as Joanne Fabric seems to be doing right now. So I like Ravelry a lot. But I just realized that I own a lot of patterns that are stored on Ravelry. And again, I like Ravelry. It makes a great index for the work I'm doing, and it stores my notes. But what do I need it for? Well, one of the things has been I've been storing Ravelry download patterns in that library on their cloud. And I thought, I don't know the future of Ravelry, so I just started downloading all that stuff. And again, it's all going to the 4T drive and to my Kindles, which have a ton of room and will take documents. So I'm very slowly, I guess, still working on my web cleanup, which I thought I was only doing once every 6 months. But I think the most important thing of all is that 5-minute timer on doom scrolling. What has that really done for me? Well, let me tell you. I'm whizzing through Romeo 24. I'm whizzing through Vestuary 25. I'm whizzing through spinning. I'm doing a good job on the quilting. What's happening? I'm doing a lot more creative stuff and a lot more stuff around the house that I would like to have done. So, what is the strategy this week? I'd say let's think about our contact with the internet, but most of all, set a timer on your scrolling on the internet. It doesn't take a lot of time to see who's mentioned you, to talk back to them, and to just identify what's giving you pleasure and to block and delete stuff that isn't. And then, if you want to download all the stuff you own that is currently not in your possession, that seems like a good idea. I do not mean this, by the way, as paranoia. I feel pretty good about things like Kindle staying alive or Ravelry. I'm not having any worries about that. I am just working on progressively being less managed by a system that was meant to serve me and yet somehow seems to be mastering me or owning me. It's much, much easier to go in and just relocate it to my own storage and to have minimal contact with the unnecessary on the internet. Okay, shoot. Well, I'm not running, but I am biking on my bike desk, and I have the Cupid Dash coming up on February 16th, so I really need to make sure I can get through that. We'll see if I do it. I always fail on these February races, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to try and run this no matter what it takes. So we're on to the fluffy books. Well, first of all, I just stalled in the book by Molly Harper, which is Calling, the third part of the Sorcery and Society trilogy. There's no real reason for it. It was just kind of out of reach last week. And I'm looking at that and saying, I need to be listening to that actually while I'm knitting. What I am reading are the Moomins, the series by Tove Jansson. And where am I? I'm on Moomin Papa's Memoirs, or The Exploits of Moomin Papa, depending on where you get your copy. And I'm really enjoying it. There's just some really amazing moments of insight. I'm fascinated by how these books are written. This woman just keeps cranking out wisdom. They're just wonderful books. I never expected to say this. I can see why they're such an international sensation. In Georgette Heyer, I finished Friday's Child. Friday's Child. Well, you have to get used to the fact that the heroine is pretty much a complete idiot. It's funny. It probably reads better than listening to it, you just keep thinking, oh, how stupid can these people be? I think the point of Friday's Child is there's so much work in this genre of what in 17th century drama they used to say a reformed rogue makes the best lover. And when I used to teach 17th century drama, there's all sorts of plays on the British stage at that time, really the English stage, that are about how men reform when they meet a smart, witty, clever woman who can kind of manipulate them. I think for me, the earliest one in this genre is probably Merchant of Venice, if you look at the relationship between Bassanio and Portia. And she really goes to the ultimate. She has to become a man and act like a lawyer to defeat him, and to bring him around. Friday's Child is a play on that, except the woman is a moron. There's no nice way to say it. They keep saying, well, she wasn't raised in nice society. But she just doesn't seem to ever think at all. Like, I don't care where you raised her. I think she'd be Hades in a chariot trying to manage life with her. It does reform the rogue. And it's interesting because it starts out as a love story and it morphs about 2/3 of the way through into this sort of action-adventure story. It's a weird little book. I think the second time around I might like it better, is the sense I got out of it. There's more to this book, but I just got so tired of Hero. By the way, the names in the book are perfect. The heroine's name is Hero. And I'm trying to think what the male lead's name is. Oh, it's Antony. Now, if you know anything about Shakespeare, you know these are really bad names to have. And Hare obviously knows her Shakespeare and her classical lit. Hero is an ill-fated romantic who runs away with her lover, and I believe they both drown in the Hellespont. Not the best idea. And Antony is always a kind of doomed lover in Shakespeare. It's based on Mark Antony, who has, of course, the highly unsuccessful in the long-term relationship with Cleopatra after a pretty hot and sexy start. So certainly Hare has a sense of humor about what she's doing in Friday's Child. It didn't come across that well listening to it. Meanwhile, I am listening and reading The Foundling. The Foundling turns into an adventure romp, and I decided I would rather read it than listen to it. So I'm now looking at what my next Hare book will be. This leads me to tell you that something I really like is the second book in the Moomin Troll series. This is called Finn, as in people from Finland, Finn, Family Moomin. There is a link in the show notes. It will take you to the Amazon book, but really you can buy it in so many places. Don't be tied to Amazon. So I really love this book. It is profound. It is beautiful. It is very sweet. There's just passage after passage that you want to read out loud when you're with other people. Starting with, in the introduction, the passage about how Moomin Valley receives winter. It's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. So something I really like is Finn, Family Moomin. Isn't it lovely that I'm reading so much that something I really like is turning into books again? I also am still following Robert Reich, the former Secretary of Labor. I think he was under Obama. He has a Substack, and he is publishing things about the current government, and I really recommend it. Reich is very clear-minded. That's what I like about his publications. He is not a fan of the current regime, and he is very articulate about what about it is striking him as wrong. Put a lid on it. Well, we're not very inspired this week, as you can tell by this very quick, short episode. I'm still doing the tea tastings, so I'm up to day 17 and day 18. Day 17 is Santa's Blend Herbal. This is green rooibos, red currant, beetroot, cinnamon, blackberry leaf, lemongrass, malva flower, blueberry essence. This is really a horse of a different color. I quite liked it. I looked at it and said, beetroot? Are you serious? And I guess that's to give it color, but I don't remember it being particularly reddish. This is just really interesting. I liked it. It has a lot of confused fruit flavor in it. It's a rooibos, which I like, so it has a little more body than the average herbal tea that just has fruit and spice in it. I like it. I don't think I'd go out of my way for it, but I would happily drink a cup if it was served to me. Day 18 I really like because if you put pear in a tea, I'm going to like it. This is the pear ginger herbal. This is red rooibos, ginger root, alfalfa leaf, calendula, and pear essence. Normally I can't drink alfalfa, and yet I drank this. Go figure. Didn't notice it till now. Boy, did I like this. Boy, I really, really like this. It's the pear flavoring, I have to be honest. The ginger is not overwhelming, and apparently neither was the alfalfa leaf. The red rooibos gives it a nice body. Now, you know, my favorite, hands down, tea from Plum Deluxe is the pear cinnamon herbal. I just am crazy about it. This one struck me in the same way. There's just a little more hint of the ginger in the background as far as I could tell. Day 19, I'm not going to review. It's Meadow Walk Herbal. This is green rooibos, lavender, rosemary, blueberries, raspberry leaves, rose hips, hibiscus, cranberries, blue cornflowers, blueberry essence. It's the lavender, kids. I'm way allergic to it, and it's the second ingredient. So I will be moving on to day 20 and 21, next episode. Moving on to the blather, I would like to remind you that I am Dr. Gemma, all one word, on Blue Sky. And you are very welcome to follow me there. I am trying to identify the people who are following me if they are listeners, so do let me know. Do feel free to text me over there and say, hey, you know, I'm one of your listeners. I am still working away on moving away from the other platforms, as you could probably tell from the strategy this week. So how's that going, Gemma? It's very interesting. One of the things that happened was I moved my Facebook and Instagram icons off the top page of all my devices. So I wanted to get rid of them. I moved them to the second page. So now that that's been going on for a week, because I think I told you this in the previous episode, how's that going? That's going great. That's going great. I forget about them all the time. And I suddenly have all this extra time, and I keep thinking, what do I do with all this time? Well, you can probably tell I'm getting stuff done around the house, and I'm not always freaking out about the crazy in our current government. And I'd like to personally apologize to Canada at this point. I'm just so embarrassed. I don't even know what to say. However, I think their lead guy's handling it really well. Thank you, Mr. Trudeau. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to get away from that. So what that has resulted in, as I've said, is I'm downloading my property from the internet and storing it on my drives that I can disconnect from the internet. And yes, that's right. I look forward to a day where I have a computer that's completely off the internet and it plugs into that removable 4 terabyte drive, and I can just do what I want all day without interfacing with the internet. Because really, what am I using the internet for? The electronic health record and my job, of course. All that stuff with my job, and those are good things. No complaints there. But I'm not going to have my job when I relocate from the internet. You know, I'm really looking forward to getting away from that. So, you know, I'm not really sure why I should have property of mine, including patterns on the internet. This is nothing against Ravelry. I'm going to say it again. I really like Ravelry, and I consider Ravelry to be this really nice index of my patterns that I can look at. But I think it's kind of important to take what you own and get it off the internet. I think that we're treating something that may be unstable or time limited in some way as though it's permanent. And I'm beginning to realize I don't want to play that game anymore. Meanwhile, I continue on mending and doing one project every weekend from, yes, my list from Romuald. And right now it's really just whizzing through all the spinning. On another subject, I want to point out, since the CDC has been silenced in the current regime, there is a vaccine information sheet set for parents. I have the link under the blather in the show notes. It is a terrible thing that we are not giving parents, or doctors for that matter, the information they need to vaccinate their children. You want to check this? Go look up on a non-U.S. government website the rate of death and illness from polio before and after the polio vaccine. You can go there. You can look at COVID. You can look at anything you want. Vaccines are good things. I'm sorry if you know anything about the history of biology and medicine, you're going to be absolutely stunned that we would even consider removing vaccines from the hands of parents. The anti-vax movement, I'm sorry, I just think it's insane. So there are the information sheets. Remember, everything stays alive on the internet, no matter what the U.S. government tries to silence. Having said that, community resources, you can see a list of the books I've used for my various yarny skills, and you can find my techniques, the things I buy, blah, blah, blah. You can find my link tree with an image that you can't click on, but it does have a link to the real one. You can find our local calendar for the groups that meet in the Santa Clarita Valley that I know of, and you can find my running calendar. CFR 11, no real planning on that, so I'm just going to say Minerva gets the second to last word, but you'll see in the notes what does get the last word, and that's worth it. But there's a picture of me and Minerva sharing the command chair. She's looking up at me, in case you're wondering about what she's doing with her head there. She's looking straight up in the air. She would not deign, I think, to look at me. She's looking sort of at the ceiling behind my head. But Minerva wants to know if the real mental health clinician will please stand up, because Minerva, of course, takes care of me. I have realized she has a timer at the end of every hour she jumps in my lap. That is the signal we're supposed to run down the hall and go to the restroom. And she comforts me when I get too stressed out. And Minerva would like you to know that she likes to get the last word, but she thinks the last word in this week's show notes is even better. And so I'm just going to say it is really important to me that Minerva has the second to last word this week. And the first and the last word, of course, are going to Black History Month. Having said all this, remember, we are a community. When we take care of the community, we are taking care of the individual. We do not need to neglect or ignore the community in order to prioritize the needs of the individual. That really doesn't make sense. And by the way, humans are based on a tribal logic, and our mental health does better when we are working as a community. I'm just going to say it outright. So please, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.